It's that time for another episode of Mo Mommies, Mo Problems. Good evening and good day to all who are tuning in. Welcome to Mo Mommies, Mo Problems, your podcast destination for all things motherhood. I feel like I'm like, um, I am your host, Kaylia Flowers, and not only am I doing my best, but I've got something to say. Um, yeah, I feel like I'm riding off of the high of dropping our first two episodes of Mo Mommy's Mo Problems. If you haven't checked that out, you should definitely go look at it. Episode one was Mr. Mom with my husband, and episode two was called Proudly Christian Mommy with my good friend Audrey Aparicio. And I think that some good conversations were had, and I'm so pumped for the future of this. I can't even explain to you how special I think this is going to be. I wasn't expecting the turnout that came from dropping the first episode. I don't know. I don't want to say that I just thought that nobody was going to watch it or care, but like I thought that nobody was going to watch it or care. I think it's just this thing in my brain that's always trying to keep me from like living my best life, my inner saboteur, if you will. And so, as soon as I get excited about a project, my inner saboteur is like, "Who do you think you are? You are not the voice of the people. Be quiet. Nobody asked for this." And I get in my head, and then I'm like, "Oh, shit. I was gonna do all these things, and then like, or I plan to do all these things, and I get all these ideas, and then I just don't follow through with him, and it has been like an uphill battle my whole life. And now I feel like I'm finally just doing something that I wanted to do, even if I'm struggling through it. Which brings me to a next point, which was that in those first two episodes, there were moments where I definitely like messed up. I stumbled on some words. The editing's not super great yet. We're still figuring it out. Like, I wanted to leave that in there because I feel like it's important that you see that I'm growing at this and that I'm not perfect. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And you may not know this, but my husband is actually like my partner in all of this behind the scenes. He sets up the sets and helps me with all the editing so far. And like, the both of us, while wildly creative and a good team, we are still figuring it out. So, we could have edited out some of that stuff. And I was like, no, I want to keep it in there because I feel like if I do this right, that you can grow with me and we can go together. And that like, as this thing gets cooler, we get a cooler set. Things just start to grow. Who knows where it's gonna go? You know what I mean? So I'm okay with starting here. I don't know. That's the vibe for the rest of the year. You know what I mean? For the rest of my life, but definitely for the year. It's just to be okay with where I'm at because I know where I'm going, and that's on period. Um, so yeah. Anyway, yeah. So bear with us as we figure it all out. We really do have so much more in store for you. So okay, yeah. Before we get started, I just wanted to make myself very clear on something. I don't know. I just feel like it's necessary to do a disclaimer as we really get into the podcast because I'm going to be interviewing people who are different from me. They're not like me. Not everyone, at least. I'm purposefully doing that. I want to be having people on the show that don't live their lives or think like me or move through the world like I do. Like, I want all of those perspectives because it's important to me to be having conversations with all sorts of moms, not just the ones that are like me. You know what I mean? So, if there's a specific guest on the podcast, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they're saying and how they feel about things is what I'm saying and how I feel about things. It's a very open space, and it's a collaborative experience between minds and journeys. And I think that at the end of the day, we're all moms. So even if you parent in a totally different way than I do, that doesn't mean we can't sit in the same room and have a conversation. You know what I mean? And I think that that's really important. That's the vibe for the podcast. Okay, the point is for actual connection, and I don't think you can do that if you're just like in these little pods of people who all feel the same way you do about things. It's like you're not growing. You're not, changing your perspective. You're not exercising your empathy muscle, putting yourself in someone else's shoes and trying to see life through their eyes. Like, that's beautiful. That's what we need to be doing. So that's what we're about to do on this podcast. And if you don't like that, then I don't know. I don't know if I would like you in the real world. So, mm, something to think about. But you should definitely stick around if you're someone who's open minded and, you know, you're open to hearing other people's experiences, you know? Right here, what did I write? I did write notes. If I only had people on the show that were like me, I think it would be really boring really quickly. You know what I mean? Oh, vulnerability researcher Brene Brown says a few somethings in her book called Braving the Wilderness. This isn't an ad. I just really like this book. I just read it. It perfectly and poetically sums up my outlook for this podcast and for the mommy group that I also started. The first one I'm going to share says, selecting like-minded friends and neighbors and separating ourselves as much as possible from people whom we think of as different from us has not delivered that deep sense of belonging that we are hardwired to crave. Okay. And then the second one I want to share says, we're going to need to intentionally be with people who are different from us. We're going to have to sign up, join, and take a seat at the table. We're going to have to learn how to listen, have hard conversations, look for joy, share pain, and be more curious than defensive, all while seeking moments of togetherness. I read that whole book and I was like, yes, this is exactly how I feel. And she said it's so sexy. I love when people are like me. Okay, everybody does. It's easy, it's safe, it feels you don't have to work as hard. You don't have to worry about what you're saying and if you're hurting someone's feelings or if it's rubbing them the wrong way or if, you know, all of that kind of goes out the window when you're hanging out with people who feel the same way about things that you do. You can kind of let your hair down. And I get it, you know, everybody likes to be around people who are like them. Most of our friends are like us. Our partners are kind of like us. But but the purpose of this podcast is to build community and genuine connection with other human beings. Learning about you, putting myself in your shoes, like I said before, because regardless of how you're raising your kids or living your life, you're still a mom. I'm a mom. I get it. You go home to someone who needs you every day. So do I. You know what I mean? Let's talk about that. Let's just talk about being moms. It's a super relatable experience, but I feel like it's also super lonely. I mean, part of the reason is because everybody has their own opinion about what a good mom looks like, and not enough of us are sitting down and listening to each other to see like what realistic moms look like. Like I don't know if you've heard of like the Good Enough Mommy, but it's like, bro, are you feeding your kids? Do you hug them? Are you you know, keeping them safe? You're a good mom, dude. And I don't know who is like the mastermind behind this, but I just feel like there's so much like mommy shame and mommy hate. And it's gross. Like what? It's not necessary and it's yucky. And honestly, it's like a bunch of people who don't feel like they're good moms that feel like they're better moms because they look at another mom who's doing something totally different that they might not agree with, and then they decide that, oh, I'm better than that mom. Well, at least I'm not like that mom. And it's like, don't use people who are minding their business and living their lives as like your thing to project your shit onto, you know, so you don't have to take accountability for your own inner saboteur that's telling you you're not a good mommy. And you are a good mommy, by the way. Whoever I'm talking to, like, you're a good mommy. I'm saying it. You're doing your damn best, okay? I said it makes it so hard to make those mom friends that if you're anything like me, you want to have. Like, you can't make mom friends if you're keeping yourself in these like little secluded circles. You know, you're not opening up your minds. So yeah, I mean, I have no desire to post videos of an echo chambered feedback loop of the same kind of mommy and perspective on parenting every single time. That's not the vibe here. And it's going to achieve the opposite outcome of what I'm hoping for. So if you're still here with us, I encourage you to keep your mind open and keep your walls down. You're not always going to see a mom who you agree with or understand, and I think that's a good thing. Dig your heels in and breathe. It's going to be okay. So with all of that in mind, let's get into it. So here's how it's going to go. On solo podcast days, the formatting is going to be a little different. I'm always going to start with my little intro and my little blurb. But from there, we're going to get into a segment called Mommy Movie Moments. And I'm really excited. So for Mommy Movie Moment, what's going to happen is I'm going to be choosing a movie that is centered around motherhood or features a main character who's a mom or has some sort of maternal element to it. And sharing my unsolicited opinions. So tonight's Mommy Movie Moment, we will be talking about Tully. Tully, okay. So Tully is a movie that I found on Netflix. It came out in 2018, directed by Jason Reitman, and starring one of my favorite actresses and celebrity crushes, Charlize Theron, who is a total babe in every role she's ever played, but truly struck me in my feels with this relatable film. So she's a mom of 3 kids. I think one of them is a baby. Like she just recently had that baby. And then 2 of them are like school aged. But her middle son, she brushes his arms. I think it's a sort of sensory thing. He seems to struggle with overstimulation and he gets really triggered and then kind of has these episodes. To be honest, it kind of seems like he might be on the spectrum, but he's regularly referred to as quirky in the movie. So they're like, oh, well, he's quirky. Even the husband's like, well, he's quirky. And you could just tell it's like driving her crazy. And I really think there's something to be said about when people try to dance around the subject when they're talking about someone else's kid and a disorder they may have or something that they may struggle with, And it's just like super annoying because I don't think people are always thinking about how uncomfortable it makes the person feel when you're like dancing around it as if there's something bad with them struggling in any kind of way. And I don't think they ever really disclose what exactly it is that her son struggles with, but it's just a little thing that kind of carries through the movie where she's like doing her best to like not be fazed by people and their stupid comments that they make after you have babies and stuff, and then like her slowly but surely kind of losing some of that self-control. Let me see. She is a woman who just had a baby. She's neck deep in the postpartum trash fire that we all know about. Yeah, that like 4th trimester where you're just like at home and you don't get sleep and you feel like you're literally dying and your body is weird and you're bleeding like you got cut open, and it's just it's not a fun time. And they really they like illustrate this so well. For me, it seems like, she's doing her best, but it doesn't seem to be good enough for her household or her husband or her kids or anything. And she's just getting like swamped and like taken over by all of this responsibility. And she's like trying to heal and she's just miserable. And you can tell it's like postpartum depression. And I think it's illuminating. I think it's an illuminating peek inside the world of postpartum and that 4th trimester that not a lot of people are talking about. I always laugh because I feel like when you're pregnant, everyone's like, don't carry this book. That's too, I'll help you with this. Oh, don't eat that. And everyone's like really helpful. And then as soon as you have the baby, it's just all about the baby. And it's almost like you become chopped liver and you're like, okay, like now is the time that I need you to pick up this book. You know what I mean? And I guess I guess it just depends on the support systems you have, because some people have like a lot of people who really do support them and who are there for them the entire time. But I guess my experience has always been that more of that experience of once you have the baby, like, okay, you have the baby now. Like, no one's giving you that attention anymore. No one's, like, checking in on you as often. Or, I mean, I guess they still are because they're checking on the baby, but it's just a different kind of thing. They're checking on the baby. They're not really, like, not a lot of people are asking, like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? So when I have friends that, like, or, like, colleagues or anyone who, like, gives birth, I'm just always like, hey, how are you doing? I hope you're healing okay. I hope you're being kind to your body. Because, like, man, nobody cares about you anymore after you have your baby. So I really liked that this movie like leaned in and talked about it, because I don't feel like there's a lot of movies like this that were it's really honest. It's almost like uncomfortable to watch. If it's not relatable, like you would be like my husband was watching it and he was like, oh man. And I was like, yeah, bro, this is that shit. This is real. This is real life. um, yeah. So anyway, as the movie goes on, we as the audience are taken through her day-to-day experiences, and they do not make it cute for us. We watch her cry, scream, hate her life, eventually split away from reality altogether without giving anything away. I just want to say that it takes a very interesting turn, and you think, I don't want to give it away, but you think one thing is happening, and then it's like another thing. So, um, I don't want to give it away. You go watch it, Tully, on Netflix. But I just want to say I was broke open by her performance. I don't even know if Charlize Theron is a mom herself, but her performance, you would have thought that. I'm like, if you don't have kids, you did your research, and you're a bad bitch. I felt like she was me, because I've been there, and it was very believable. Um, yeah, I felt like she knew me, like she was me, you know. And I've never been diagnosed with postpartum depression, but I definitely have felt the darkness gather up around me after having my kids, both kids. Um, I always talk about it. I feel like you're grieving. You like shed a self every time you have a baby. So like my mommy's friends who have like hella kids, it's like you're like reborn every time alongside your kid, and that can be disorienting sometimes. And you're just like, who am I? What's going on? You're grieving, like your body's different again. Like it was already, you already had to get used to the way that it was after the last time you gave birth, if you've given birth more than once. And now you're readjusting all over again, and it's just like it's such a weird time anyway. And then like you're worried about if your kid is gonna, if it's breathing, and you're thinking about crib death and like all these crazy things. I remember SIDS. I When I had my first son, I was 19 years old, and I read about SIDS. Um, and I was like, sudden infant death syndrome, and I was like, what? Like suddenly he could die? So then I swear to you, I was like, just like watching him all the time, because I was so afraid that I was gonna wake up and he was gonna not be breathing. Somebody out here has like seen their kid and stopped and been like, to make sure they were breathing, and then they're like, and you're like, cool, 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 cool. And you just keep going. Like, I know somebody, leave a comment if you relate to that moment, because me and Darian, I swear, we'll peek in on him while he's sleeping or taking a nap, and then we're both like, okay, he's breathing. Cool, 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 cool. Sometimes we've both talked about it. Sometimes you have to walk up and like poke him just a little bit, and then he's like, ah! And you're like, cool, cool, alive. He's alive. Hey, that's all I wanted to know. um, and all of that is, I'm being comical, but like it's a lot on the body. I mean, I have a lot of anxiety anyway, naturally. So, man, like that little period after you have a kid is hard. And if you're a working mom, you're likely on maternity leave, so you're just sitting in your house. Isolation. I mean, I'm an extrovert, so like when I'm in isolation, I get like, for like 5 seconds it feels really good because I'm like, oh wow, peace and quiet, and then I lose my mind, and I feel like I start spiraling, and it gets really crazy for me. So that was always hard, is just sitting in the house, and he's crying or they're crying all the time, and you're not sleeping, and you're not having sex if you have a partner that you're with, and like because you're bleeding like a cut open cow, and it's just none of that is fun. Um, Gosh, it's this really crappy time, and so you just watch her go through that. I feel like, I mean, especially if you breastfeed, like your body literally doesn't belong to you for a solid 2 years when you decide to have a baby, or if you end up pregnant, whether it's intentional or not. You know what I mean? And yeah, like, I mean, especially in those first 6 months, earthside with your baby, it's almost like you're grieving a death. You're like, R.I.P. me. Gotta change again. Gotta change again. And I don't even do well with change. I don't know if you do well with change. But if you don't do well with change, then you're probably like me, where it's like, oh gosh, you have to really like go hibernate and like figure out who you're, like your new identity now. So yeah, I feel like that's something people don't really like to talk about. I don't know about you, but I feel like you always see like the cute little bundle of joy photos, and it's like a naked baby in a basket with like flower halos and stuff, and you hear women talk about the joys of new motherhood, and we don't always tell people that we're hurting, that we're sore, that we hate breastfeeding, that we don't know how we feel about our baby yet, that we kind of hate the adjustment period, that we kind of hate our husbands, that we kind of hate our partners, our wives, that that we kind of hate our lives for a second. And I feel like that doesn't feel like it's okay to say, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I also get this thought where I'm like, how dare you bring this up? Like, you should be grateful. There's so many people who want what you have. There's so many people who can't have kids, who are trying right now to get pregnant. Like, you can't go and talk about how it sucks. Like, you're not allowed to do that. Motherhood, like, you're a bad mom. That makes you a bad mom. I know somebody feels me. And so if you're having these thoughts and you're like, oh, this isn't normal, then like every single time you have the thought, you're like, I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad mom. Every time, I'm a bad mom. And you're not a bad mom just because you don't like being a mom sometimes. I don't like being a mom sometimes. Being a mom sucks. It does. But it's also beautiful and like the most amazing experience ever. I can't really explain it. It's just all the things. It's like anything that's worth it in life is like hard and the worst, but so worth it. And it's not for anyone who's selfish. Like, if you struggle with putting other people before yourself, then you're going to struggle through parenting. And that's just, it's a very selfless game. And patience, it's a very patience oriented kind of game. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, especially at the beginning, being a mom hella sucks. I mean, you're not getting any sleep. Your body's hella weak and weird. You have to get to know this new alien-looking thing, and it's not even cute yet. So you're like, okay, you little bug-eyed alien. I guess we're doing life together, man. And everyone's making these unnecessary comments about your body or how tired you look, and they're giving you all their unsolicited advice that nobody asked for. And you add any kids to that, and what you get is a mom who's on the brink of losing her shit altogether. Truly, that is what this movie is about. Honestly, it's so good. It takes a turn, and I keep wanting to talk about the turn, but I don't want to get into it because it is really good, and I think if I give all the juicy bits away, then it's not going to be enjoyable for you. So if you have not seen it, go watch it. Tully on Netflix, directed by Jason Reitman, starring Charlize Theron. Yeah, I do believe it's still on Netflix right now, so go check it out. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is called Mommies, Hella Problems. We're going to workshop that name. I don't know. I'm kind of like workshopping a couple different names, but right now it's called Mommies, Hella Problems. Here's how it's going to go down. The plan is for moms to be reaching out to me via email and sharing their anecdotal mommy moments and issues, or just funny mommy moments, wholesome moments, any kind of crazy birth story or something. All that stuff. And I'm just going to like read some of them each episode and comment or offer support or encouragement or advice. I mean, I'm not like a trained professional in anything, but I could definitely give my 2 cents. Yeah, and I'm going to be keeping names and information anonymous because we all are currently from the same town. So please don't be afraid to share your stuff. I want to hear from you. I have yet to receive any emails for this segment. So I'm going to be sharing my own mommy problem this evening. What I want to talk about is childcare and how I'm deathly afraid of sending my baby to any childcare that isn't the current childcare facility I'm working for or like a family member. And neither of those are options anymore. So it's just kind of like, man, what do I do? And right now, my husband, if you watched episode 1 of the podcast, you would know that he has been taking care of all the kids stuff during the day is him every day on the weekdays. And the reason why is because we haven't been able to like keep solid childcare, and like the plan was for him to move over to the childcare facility that I work at, but we're actually now no longer. It was like something that turned over in the new year. We're no longer allowed to have our own children at the center due to like conflict of interest or something. So it's like, man, we're definitely like back to the drawing board. And my husband was like, well, there are other childcare facilities. Like, there's one my brother went to, and he's like talking about all these options. And I was like, nah, bro. I don't know why, but I don't want. Well, no, actually, let me take that back. I do know why. And it's because people are shady, and I don't trust people. And I'm so sorry. If you've been abused as a kid or you've been through any kind of like childhood trauma, you probably don't trust people either. And so somebody feels me when I say, like, you're not keeping my child. No. I don't just trust anyone with my kids. Like, I can't do that. I get a lot of anxiety. Yeah. So anyway, it's just been really hard because I don't trust people. And I think it's a struggle for me. And I know that it's like, okay, at some point you're going to have to trust somebody with your kids. But I don't know, man. I grew up and like there were all kinds of, like every school I went to, there was some kind of scandal with a teacher and a student. And it's the reason why is because it's like people seek out those kinds of professions when they're into weird stuff like that or when they like are struggling mentally in those ways. So I don't be trusting people. No, I will fight somebody for my kids. I will burn down a small country. You heard it here. I don't play. Like even talking about it, like it. No, nope, nope. So anyway, does anybody else feel this way about preschools or daycare centers? To where it's like, oh my gosh, if you're not like in my immediate family, like I don't know who you have at your like I don't know who's, I don't know you. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't know you. I don't trust you. Not with my kids. So I think it just causes problems because I just wish I was. Sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, I wish I wasn't so like not damaged, but like I wish I didn't have so many like of those issues, core issues from my childhood, because then I think it would be a lot easier for me to find a decent child care center so that we can like kind of make our lives a little bit easier. But I mean, I guess we've been saving the money. That's always nice. Because child care is expensive. I mean, if you have a baby, like you're paying basically like a small rent, like total, or like like a small rent. If you had like a small apartment, it would be like rent every month. That's how much childcare is. Which I mean, should be because they're precious cargo, but it is hard. So it's been nice, I guess, saving the money for it, but that's my mommy problem. I don't know. I'm really anxious about that. I do feel like I need to. My anxiety in general has caused like not problems, but I feel like sometimes I like make things harder than they need to be because I get so anxious about things. And I'm like, oh no, but then if he goes there and then I can't watch him, and like, or if he goes with his friends or he plays outside with some friends, and then what if like I don't know where he is, and I don't know. I know somebody feels me like anytime we do a mommy meetup where all the kids are running around, like I can always feel the energy shift from like when we do the mommy meetups like all by ourselves without the kids, like we're all like tuned in and everybody's talking and like vibing and laughing and connecting and like relating, and then like you throw our kids in the mix and everyone's like, hey, don't do that, get away from there. And it's like you're trying to have these conversations, but you're like, squirrel, like, because where's my kid? Wait, where'd he go? Wait, I lost him. Where's his shirt? Okay, there's his shirt. I see it. Where did he go again? Oh my God, did he just fall? Oh my God, who pushed him? Are you pushing someone? Don't eat that. That's gross. What are you doing? And you're just like, and for me, it's like all anxiety inducing. Like trying to take my kids to the park sometimes is like, ooh, it's kind of hard. I don't know if anybody struggles, but if you're a mommy with anxiety, then you'll feel me. So anyway, do you feel this way about preschools and daycares? Leave a comment if you relate. And don't forget to send in your anecdotal stories to mmmppodcast@gmail.com, and I will share with the viewers. Because again, the mission here is to bring mommies together for connection and community. And now it's time for. I skipped ahead. Oh, now it's time for our next segment, which is called Mommies in the Media. And I'm actually really excited about this. Mommies in the Media is going to go like this. We're going to be talking about celebrity moms and how they're perceived by the media. And I, once again, will be sharing my unsolicited opinions. So tonight's mommy is Brittany Spears. And I'm really excited about this because I love Brittany Spears. But I feel like she's always kind of been viewed as a bad mom, like since she had a mom. I don't want to pretend like I'm like a diehard Britney Spears fan. I don't know all the like tea about her actual, her like life storyline. You know, I have friends who are like, they know everything there is to know about Britney. I do not. I'm not going to pretend I do. And I didn't do too much extra research, but I do know there was an incident where she shaved her head and where, she was just, something happened where she was like kind of being a negligent mommy with her baby. And I just remember like there being so much talk in the media about her being a bad mom. And I mean, now we know that she was struggling with so much. And I think that is a metaphor for a lot of things. It's like, gosh, we judge moms so easily. Because on the outside, it looks like, oh, she's like, putting herself before her kids, or oh, she's mentally unstable, or oh, she's having a meltdown or an episode or a freak out. And it's like, bro, she's likely experienced something really hard and she's doing her damn best. Yeah, I don't know. I think when we start talking about people not receiving a proper childhood, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you never watched an adult be a good parent to you, how could you possibly know how to be a good parent? I struggle all the time. And like there's people who've had it worse than I have had it, but it wasn't great. You know? And so I struggle all the time. I'm like, wait, how do I handle this? How do I not like scream at my kids? Because your programming is just like to do whatever it is that you watched. So like if you didn't receive a proper childhood, like you're not developmentally at the same level as everyone else your age. So you're having kids, like you're at the childbearing age, but your mind is like still 15. And I truly think that that's what's happening with our friend Brittany Spears. And I think that we should have more empathy. But it's also funny because I don't know. I just feel like why when people struggle with mental health issues and it presents itself in a way that makes you uncomfortable, is it now they're a bad person or they're a bad mom? You know, like that always has bothered me. Instead of being sick, like you wouldn't what did I write here? I said if a mom had cancer and couldn't be for her kids there for her kids in the same way anymore. So if she had cancer and now she's like not at all the softball games and she's not on the floor playing with them and she's sleeping a lot and she's just absent and honestly like she's not really there for like she's she's having a hard time, like, but she's getting the help she needs, nobody would call her a bad mom. Maybe somebody would. That sucks. But like most people would probably be like, oh well, yeah, it does suck that you're not there for your kids, but you're having a really hard time right now. And like once you like if you start to feel better and you work to get yourself feeling better, then you're doing your best right now with what you have to work with. But nobody treats people who are not nobody. I don't want to use absolutes, but not a lot of people feel that way in the other direction. So I just thought that was really interesting. I feel like we need to fight that stigma. And I don't know that much about her conservatorship because I like barely scratched the surface in 2020 when everything was being spilled. I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, this is insane. It was very, if you've seen, I'm sure they based it off of Britney Spears, but that episode of Black Mirror with Miley Cyrus, I was listening to what happened to Britney Spears and I was like, oh my gosh. This is Black Mirror. This is that Black Mirror episode. I was telling my husband, I was like, this is that Black Mirror episode we watched. So anyway, yeah. I'm glad to hear that she's free. I believe she's been able to see her kids since, the court hearing came and like cleared up everything. But I do see that she's still kind of she's struggling. She's figuring it out. I can definitely tell sometimes with her posts and things that she's still kind of like, I don't know. I think if you've been like severely abused and mentally like, and she's been like worn down her body, like they had her like doing shows and like she was like putting out a lot of music and doing a lot for the industry for several years and didn't really get a childhood and that kind of stuff. Just kind of sometimes it snaps, something snaps in there, and you're just kind of not all there all the time. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but I do believe she had a miscarriage sometime last year. I don't remember exactly like all the details of that. I remember she was like, "I'm pregnant," and then she was like, "We're not pregnant," and I remember feeling really sad about that. Um, yeah, I know that's a nightmare for a lot of people, and I mean that's why some people choose to post about their pregnancies after they're like 6 months because it's like, oh, it's been like 6 months. I feel a little bit better about it, but I mean, overall, she's a little peculiar, but I mean, she's still a bad bitch. She's still dancing. She's still doing the things that make her happy, and it makes her feel good. And she's doing what she wants with so much conviction. And honestly, when I see anyone doing that, I'm always like, cheers to you, you know? Um, I can relate to all those things. But I also have something to say. I also have things. I also have something to say about people who support her through her mental health struggles, but don't keep that same energy with other moms they come in contact with day to day. Um, it really makes me mad. If you feel for Britney Spears and radically accept her for all the parts of her, even when she's like being weird on social media or like kind of speaking in a way that's like you could tell is very manic or she's having like a hard time and like you're like I love you anyway and you're like giving all your love and support to her, it's like keep that energy when you see another mom posting weird stuff on social media. Be like, are you okay? I notice you're posting a little differently. Like, I just want to check in. Are you okay? Versus being like, she's weird. I'm gonna unfollow. Like, you guys are weird. Like, that's not you guys, but people are weird, man. You know what I mean? Yes. So, if you're going to radically accept Britney Spears for all of her parts, even the broken pieces, then you should also be radically accepting every single other mommy out there who has been abused and didn't receive a proper childhood that was safe and loving. And, supporting all moms who struggle with mental health stability and hit their personal bottoms. Keep that energy. That's all I'm going to say here. Um, Also, there's this song I remember, and it was before I ever had a kid, but it was on her circus album, and it's called My Baby. And she's like, tiny hands. She's like talking about tiny hands and like your little nose and your baby breath. And it's like, oh, this sweet song that she wrote. And I just remember thinking, that's a good mom. Like, that's not a bad mom. Like, you're judging her for like her worst moment, and the only reason why it's on, like, the only reason why you know about it is because she's like forced into the spotlight all the time. It's like, imagine if you had all your shit out for everyone to see, all your meltdowns, your worst moments. That's not fair. And we always talk about free Britney, but like literally free Britney, like leave her alone, like let her be. It's hard to be a mom. I couldn't even imagine being one in the spotlight. So anyway, I love Britney. Hashtag Britney fan. Um, Leave me a comment below and let me know which mommy in the media I should do next. Because I think this is another really cool segment and I'm excited for the future of this. So the next segment is called Kicking It with Kay. This is more of a free flow of things that swim around in my head in regards to motherhood. And so today's topic is bullies. And I want to ask you, who was your first bully? Can you remember? Leave it in the comments. You don't have to say names, but you can just tell me about like your very first experience with feeling like you were being bullied. I remember. But before I get to that, I want to tell you about something that happened. My son asked me the other day. I was cleaning the kitchen, and he walked up and was like, doing something. We were laughing, and I was like making him laugh, and he thought I was funny, and then he stopped and was like, Mommy, why do you yell at me sometimes? And I was like, what? And I felt so horrible, and I just like wanted to cry. But I mean, here's the thing. I felt really good that he felt safe enough to ask me that, because I don't think I would have felt safe enough to ask that as a child. Like, that would have been like disrespectful or something in my brain, at least at that age. So I'm like, okay, you're 7 years old and you're asking the hard questions, so I had to get it together, and I was like, well, sometimes mommy has a hard day and I'm struggling with things that have nothing to do with you, and then sometimes you don't listen, and sometimes I get very frustrated, and then I have big feelings, and I shouldn't yell at you. That's not cool to do. And he's like, yeah, I don't like it when you yell. And I was like, I'm sorry. And he was like, it's okay, I still love you. And I was like, like, I just was like, oh gosh. I don't know how old your kids are, but like, if you have a kid that's at that age where they're like having these kinds of conversations with you, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where you're like, why did that just like stab me in my feels? Like, he's always saying things. One time I like spilled a bunch of stuff on the floor, and he was like, and I was like, shit. Like, I was like really mad. I was like, damn it. I like dropped all this stuff on the floor. And he was like, that's okay, mommy. Everybody makes mistakes. And he like reached over and like patted me on the back. And I was like, oh my gosh. What? I stop. I'm like, you right. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm like taking breaths. That's so funny. Yeah, so, I felt good that he felt safe enough to ask me the question. But I mean, I didn't really have an answer for him besides, that sometimes mommy gets frustrated and doesn't really know how to control herself, and that I was sorry. And this just brings me to a small point. I think apologizing to your kids is really important. In my opinion, I think that if you're not apologizing, then not only do they grow up and like don't feel comfortable apologizing because like that pride, like they learn it from you, but then also I think they really feel like every single time you yelled at them it was their fault and that there's something wrong with them. At least, I mean, I can't speak for all kids because again, everybody parents in their own way and they have their own style, but as far as like what I experienced growing up being that kid who was like getting yelled at, like, apologizing is nice when it's out of line. When you do too much, you're doing the most. Sometimes you get really mad and you're frustrated, and it just feels good to like. I always tell Darian, like, I have to fight the urge to get adult angry at a small child. It's like I'm angry the way I'd be angry at my husband, but it's like directed at the small person who's not prepared to like hear or like take on that you're putting on them. And it's really hard. I'm not good at it. I'm not gonna pretend. I'm not gonna sit on here this camera and pretend like I'm like really good at that, because I definitely struggle. But I do apologize. So if you I don't know. I feel like if you have a lot of pride, that it's probably gonna be hard to apologize. Sometimes for me, I'm like, I'm sorry, and like I want to cry because like my pride doesn't want me to apologize. I feel ashamed. I feel bad. But it's good, and it's starting now to feel good when I apologize for things because I'm starting to get more comfortable doing it. So I mean, if you don't, I mean, maybe you should try, see what it makes you feel like. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. Who cares? But anyway, he gave me and said, yeah, I said that part already. And I still love him too. I just also think it's funny that kids like rock your world so often. Nobody tells you that part about motherhood, that your kids are going to trigger you in all kinds of crazy ways, and that you're going to learn from them a whole bunch. That's the craziest part. Like, my son is just a crazy weirdo, and he's really smart, and he's very eager, and he wants to like run up to you and introduce himself and tell you his name, and he wants to be best friends. And I've watched him on the playground with people, and kids are like, we don't want to play with you. And me as a kid, I would have like went and cried and been like, they don't want to play with me, and that would have like been like my life story forever. Literally, that's like my first bully, pretty much. That was what happened. And he's just like, okay, and he just keeps going. He's just so confident. And I tell him, I'm like, you're crazy and you're weird, and that's okay. All those things are okay. There's nothing wrong with it. You be yourself. So I love watching him be himself. It gives me, it inspires me to be myself. He inspires me to be myself all the time. I'm very proud of my older boy. So anyway, a week or so later, we were watching Matilda, and he goes, "Oh, I'm so glad that my mommy and daddy are nice to me." And I started sharing with him that I had a childhood a lot more like Matilda's, and that my parents weren't always really nice to me. He got really sad for me. Again, rocked my world. Um, he's like, "I'm sorry that happened to your mommy. That's so sad." We started talking about bullies and how they're usually mean because they're sad and they want to make other people sad too. And I asked him if he had any bullies at school because I was like, "Do you have any bullies at school? Anybody bullying you yet?" He said, "Not really." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I thought about my very first bully and I tried to figure out who that was. And I remembered. Um, she was this redheaded girl at my school. I'm not gonna say her name. We'll call her Annie. Her name was Annie, and Annie was best friends with this other girl named, we're gonna call her Rachel. So Rachel and Annie were best friends, and I thought they were really cool. And they always had like really like cute sparkly pens. I can't remember what grade I was in. I was probably in like third grade. And Annie, they were playing like jump rope, and I went to go jump rope with them, and they like made me stop, and they were like, "Stop, we don't want to play with you." And I was like, "Well, let me play." Like I kind of was like aggressive at that time, at that age. I was like, "Let me play, I want to play." Like I was like really excited. She was like, "You have problems," and it killed me. I was like, and she was right. By the way, definitely have problems. But we all have problems. So take that, Annie. But her and Rachel were just not kind to me, and I just will always remember that being like my first rejection, and I've been super sensitive about it ever since. So the more I started thinking about that, we were all sitting there and we were talking about like, "Oh, that's a bully." We were like pointing out the bullies in Matilda, and then I stopped and thought, okay, Matilda's first bully is your parents. And then I stopped and I was like, my first bully was like family members. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Like I don't know if you relate to with me, then you understand what I mean. Where it's like your first bully happened before you ever stepped foot onto a school campus, and that is just crazy to think about. So I think when the people who are you're supposed to be trusting to take care of you, when they're bullies, then you just think that that's the way people are and that's the way it's supposed to be. So you don't trust grown-ups. You have a problem. You're probably somebody, if you've struggled with this, you might have a problem with like um what's that called? Authority. You know what I mean? Like you probably have like authority problems where you don't necessarily trust the grown up that's telling you what to do. I'm saying grown up, but like anybody who's like in a higher position over you, even like somebody at work or somebody in a social setting, in a community setting, like you just don't trust the leader. You're like, I don't trust you. I don't know. You seem shifty to me. You find reasons why they're shifty often because you weren't raised by people who were solid. You know what I mean? And I think we deal with adult bullies too. I mean, only this time I feel like you have to be super covert and passive aggressive so you don't lose your job or your house or your kids or your partner. You know? So like you deal with bullies all the time, like people that are sad, so they want you to feel sad, and they want you to feel small so that they can feel big for 5 seconds, and they might even pretend like they're nice to you, and then they'll turn around and do it to you all over again. Especially if you let them and you don't set those boundaries. Um, and it's just crazy because like you end up in these situations where you look around and like everyone in your life is a bully, and it's because you were raised by bullies and you don't know anything but that. You know, like all you know is bullies. Um, so yeah, I wrote something. Let me see. Oh, okay. I said I feel like when you get bullied all through your childhood, you either become a bully, attract bullies because you can't tell it's happening and it just feels like home, or you become the opposite of a bully and you develop strong boundaries to keep them away, and stand up for yourself or for anyone else who might be getting bullied. And I guess that last one is kind of what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I mean, and with social media, it's so easy to bully now. I mean, it's anonymous most of the time. You're protected by the screen. You can say whatever you want. It's you're in cyberspace, and people don't even realize that they're bullies on the internet. It's like you're going out here trying to make other people sad because you're sad, and that's lame. Stop doing that. Let people have joy. You go find yourself some joy. Stop worrying about everybody else and try to figure out what you need. What do you need? You're trying to hurt someone because you're hurt. You need to heal that. Figure out what you need and give yourself it. Whatever you're trying to get from people, give it to yourself so that other people being happy doesn't annoy you so damn much. And you don't feel the need to go sabotage their stuff. Like, that's what a bully is. So yeah, I feel like if we're not careful, we can end up bullying our own kids because we're raised by bullies and everyone around us is a bully, so we're bullies. And next thing we know, we feel sad and small, and you know, your kids acting out, not listening, and you want to make them feel sad and small. And next thing you know, everyone around you is sad and small, and nobody is growing, and the generational curse is continued. And that's something I'm working on even. Like, not that, I mean, I definitely feel like I'm not bullying my kids, but I have moments where like I said, I get adult angry at a child, and I'm like, whoa, I need to chill. Like, this just clicked over. Like, it went from me trying to, like, teach you something to me trying to shame you or reprimand you or make you feel small. And, like, at that point, it's like, I need to pause and I need to go, like, get it together. So usually I'm like, just go to your room for a minute. And then if there's anything I need to apologize for, I come back and apologize. I want to get to the point where hopefully I don't have to apologize so much. But it's hard out here, man. And being a mom sucks. And, you know, that's the theme of this podcast episode. I don't know. I feel like I try to choose to parent in a way that is stern when I mean business, but full of connection, closeness, hugs, and lots of love. I love yous, pictures, all that. Your kids are going to get bullied at some point. And there's so much that they have to just learn by going through it. And there's so much that we can't protect them from. Like, you can't protect them from everything. So don't let what you can control, which is yourself, also mess them up. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. If you find yourself regularly getting on your kids or shaming them, making them feel small, whether they tell you or not, I encourage you to do some inner work. Maybe seek some help from a licensed professional to figure out why you're struggling with those tendencies, and then working to heal yourself and adopt some healthy coping mechanisms and emotional regulation strategies. And this is just stuff I'm currently trying to do as well, because nobody's perfect, and I struggle a hell of a lot with all kinds of stuff. But all of this does involve being super honest with ourselves, and that's not always easy. I think in a lot of ways our brain tries to protect us from, like, collapse. So sometimes it's like if you really look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, whoa, like you see the truth instead of like projecting all of it onto other people, you're like, oh, I need some work. Like, I do struggle with like A, B, and C. But like if you can't get there, then it's going to be really hard to look inward and figure out the rest of it. So like that would be a good starting point, I think, is just really getting honest with yourself. Because it's necessary. It's okay to admit that we mess up and that we suck sometimes, but just don't sit in it. Don't stay there. Get your ass up and make some changes. I mean, your kids need you, man. So yeah, thank you guys. This has been a fun time. I know there's all kinds of little blurpies where I mess up and I fumble on my words and there's awkward pauses, but you know, we're figuring it out. I hope you really liked this episode. I want to wrap this thing up with another quote from Brené Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness, that I really love. And it goes like this. Stop walking through the world looking for confirmation that you don't belong. You're always going to find it because you've made that your mission. Stop scouring people's faces for evidence that you're not enough. You will always find it because you've made that your goal. True belonging and self-worth are not goods. We don't negotiate their value with the world. The truth about who we are lives in our hearts. Our call to courage is to protect our wild heart against constant evaluation, especially our own. No one belongs here more than you. So if you're still here listening with us, I just want you to know that you are so special. You are loved. You are sexy and cool. Yes, you. And that if nowhere else, you belong here. And that there's room for you and space for you, for each and every one of you here in this space that I've created. And I hope that you're down to tag along with us on this journey and maybe even join in the conversation. Until next time, I'm Kaylia Flowers, and thank you for listening to our podcast, Mommies. More problems. See you later. Bye.